have you ever realized how broken someone is until you try to love them? Yeah, you guys gotta stay with me. Welcome back to the Beth B Effect, where the vibe is unmuted, unafraid, and unapologetic. I'm your host, Beth, and today I want to talk about that topic. I want to talk about when you realize, or have you ever realized how broken someone was until you tried to love them. So, like, let's get in this space, right? So, the Bible says that, you know, love hides a multitude of faults, and that's true. That's true. Because what happens is, you remember the first time you met that person, remember how special they were, remember how they made you feel, remember how you wanted to be cute, you wanted to be on time, you wanted to be in a space where you're like, that's my person. You felt like that was your person. You felt like this person being my person makes me feel special, makes me feel like, hey, okay, okay. You couldn't wait to see them. And then the more you got to know them, it's like the red flags almost didn't matter. You see them, right? But you ignored them because they weren't that heavy. And in that space, those pieces of that person don't start to reveal itself until there's some kind of intimacy. And I'm not talking about the physical intimacy, I'm talking about the mental, where we're having a conversation, we're on the phone, we're texting one another, we're sending memes, we're sending reels, and those reels and those memes kind of reflect our true personality, where we want to spend time together, where we like to eat. All those things start to reveal, right, who we are. Thanks for joining, Chef. Yeah, I'll definitely see you later. Good luck on your podcast. But that's where that intimacy, that intimacy level, that's where we start to see things where we're like, hmm, who is this person? And let's be clear, like, broken people can love too. Broken doesn't mean bad, right? Broken doesn't mean bad, because we all carry something. We're all in a space where we've all suffered the consequence of someone else's actions that put us in a space where we're like, oh, my heart hurts, or I'm feeling bad, or I'm feeling unworthy. And we carry that, right? Those pieces leave fingerprints. They leave fingerprints, and those fingerprints kind of shapes who we become, kind of shapes who we are. It kind of helps us figure out where we are, what we're doing, what we're feeling. To see what love reveals, it's what love reveals. If you start to see in that space when you're intimate with someone, again, not the physical, but when you are becoming an intimate pair with someone else, you can kind of sort of see where it is, if it's toxic, if it's convoluted, if it's kind of, it starts to reveal itself. And in a healthy relationship, in a healthy space, right? In a healthy space, a person, there's effective communication where you're you're relaying or conveying to the person, hey, I'm going to hang out with my sister. I'm going to hang out with my friend. I'll be back. The even exchanges, well, how long are you going to be? Are you going to be a little bit? Because then the other person may have something that they could do. And then that exchange is healthy because in that space, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going out. So, okay, I'll see you later. We'll catch up later. We'll hang out later. We'll do whatever later. Hey, sis, thank you for joining the live. But in that space is healthy. I'm telling you, you're telling me, and there's no fear. There's no space where we don't feel like we can share this information. It's okay and it's appropriate to share this information. But some of the unhealthy behaviors show up when the person's like, well, where you going? Well, who you gonna be with? Well, how long you gonna be out? Or why you always out? Those concerns, those are the spaces where you start saying to yourself, And if you haven't exhibited any signs of being in an unhealthy space, or you haven't made the other person feel they should raise concerns about your whereabouts, that's the space where you start to ask yourself, does this person have trust issues? Like what's happening? And again, if you want to tell someone where you're going to be, if you don't want to tell someone where you're going to be, I'm not saying that you have to. But what I am saying is in a healthy space, it's okay to share and exchange that information. Where it starts to become unhealthy and toxic is where the person's asking you because they have fear of abandonment. That's different. They have fear of vulnerability. They don't want you to get them first. They want to get you first. And if it looks like you're going to get them, they're definitely going to get you first. So they're on guard because they want to see what you're doing because of the fingerprints that have been left on them from previous situations. Meanwhile, you're still operating in a space of trustworthiness. They have these emotional walls that they built up because they're not going to let anybody hurt or make them feel like they're not worthy at all again. So they're at arms. And in some spaces, that unhealthy behavior forces a person to self-sabotage, right? Because if you're in a healthy space where you're exhibiting healthy signs of being in a place where you can share, where you're showing you're emotionally involved, your emotional intelligence is allowing you to meet the other person where they are. But despite your efforts to be who you are in a healthy, intimate environment, you're not met with that demand. You're not met in that space. You're not met to feel comfortable enough to share what you have going on because the questions don't meet where you are. The questions are suggestive, right? And by suggestive, I mean there's a different way to ask questions. Hey, are you going to the store? That open-ended question allows you to answer in the negative or the positive, yes or no. An unhealthy question. So you just gonna walk out the door because you're gathering your things. Weird, but unhealthy. And in that space, it forces you to respond in a way where you're like, well, I didn't get the chance to tell you yet. Hold on. Unhealthy. But you can see when toxic behaviors or immature or unhealthy behaviors are attached to a specific situation based on how a person acts, speaks. And like I said, we all have baggage, right? So We all come from a place where we have to heal. We come from a place where we are doing better. We've overcome what has happened to us. We've overcome what we feel. We've overcome a situation that kind of impaled us, right? Made us feel like, oh, I'm not worthy. I could have did better. Oh my gosh, like what did I do? There's always a space for that. But we got to be mindful, right? Because healing is a responsibility. And whose responsibility it is? It's ours. I'm responsible for healing. If I'm in a situation or if I've been in a space where I've been hurt and something has made me feel like I was unworthy or I was taken advantage of, it's up to me. The onus is on me to heal myself, to do better for myself. Right? I can't wait for someone else to come and be my knight in shining armor. I have to be okay in my own space. When someone comes into my life, that person is going to add to what I already had. And when we don't hold ourselves accountable for healing internally, we start to blame everybody else. It's everybody else's fault except for ours. Weird, but true. And when we hide in that space, what do? We lack accountability because that's where I don't want to hold myself responsible. That's where I don't want to see myself at the value in which I stand. I don't want to see this because I hold myself to a higher standard, right? So if I'm toxic and someone tells me I'm toxic, I don't want to see that. So the moment that someone points the finger at me and tells me, you're not being the person I need you to be, or you're not being my friend, or you're not being, deep down inside, I know if I'm toxic or not. I know what kind of person I am. I know exactly who I am. I don't need, I'm too old for someone to mature to have to rely on someone else's finger to determine who I am or what I should do or what I shouldn't do. But when you're not that person, right? When you are the person that's trying to love on someone, pour into someone, and you see that they're not accepting of the love that you have, they're not willing to condition themselves to conform to what it is that you need so that the situation is mutual. When you realize that love is not enough, what do you do? What do you do? What most of us try to do, we try to heal them. And those that's where I found myself in a space once. I always felt like I had enough love and compassion and consideration, thoughtfulness, that I always wanted to make sure someone else was okay because I was already okay. I was already okay. I didn't need anyone to help me be okay. But every time I ran into someone who appeared to have an unhealthy behavior, I felt like I could save them. And no slight to Jesus. Y'all know Jesus is my guy. I love him wholeheartedly. I believe in him. I'm with him all day. But he did that. Like, he came here to save the people. And I'm not saying that I can't do what he did to try to save more people. I can, but not to a detriment, not where it's detrimental to my mental health. It's not detrimental to my emotional health. It can't be detrimental to my physical health. Like, I can't love someone so much that I allow them to put me in a space where I can no longer love myself. You can't love away someone else's trauma. You can't love someone else's discomfort, someone else's toxicity. You cannot love someone into healing mode. You just can't. You can not sacrifice yourself to save someone else. When we operate from that space, we don't realize that we are like the gallon of water, love, right? So let's take a gallon of water. You have 1 cup for a person that you're intimate with. This is my person. I'm loving them. We're sharing a life together. We're doing what we need to do in this situation, relationship, whatever you categorize it is, whatever it is. You have another friendship, and that friendship is weak on its legs because the other person is toxic or they are who they are. And again, we're not name blaming, right? We're not calling anybody. They have unhealthy behaviors. They have unhealthy behaviors that are not in alignment with your healthier behaviors. Because we're none of us are extremely healthy. We all carry something, right? We all carry some kind of weight. We all have some kind of baggage. But if you have those 4 glasses, you're the gallon, and you have 4 glasses, and 1 gallon represents this, or one thing represents that. If you're pouring into all those spaces every time, you'll be empty. You'll be empty. And then what happens when you run empty? What happens when you run empty? Who fills you back up? Who pours into you? Who gives back? Who gives back the water that you gave to someone else? What happens when that gallon of you runs dry? What happens when there's nothing else to pour? What happens when that toxic behavior takes advantage of you and you don't know what to do to be better? What happens then? Is someone going to sacrifice and pour back into you? And I'm not saying that people don't pour back. I'm not saying that. There are some situations where relationships are mutual. If you pour, I pour. If you're empty, I fill you up. If I'm empty, you'll fill me up. But that has to be a mutual understanding. It has to be a healthy environment. And in those spaces, that's where we can thrive. Those are the places where we are okay. Those are the places where we don't empty ourselves out and we don't feel strained about what it is that we're sharing with another person. Toxic behaviors aren't overtaking our judgment. They aren't clouding our judgment. We're not feeling down every day because we have to pour into someone else when we're already on E. Because we got to be mindful. Some people like when you're on E. Unhealthy environment likes unhealthy. You ever heard that phrase, misery loves company? That is so true. It's not that it's not true. Misery loves company. You gotta find yourself out of that box. You gotta stay out of that box of misery. And the only way to do that is to identify the signs early. You gotta see what's in front of you. Accept what's in front of you. Identify it for what it is. You gotta identify it for what it is. So here's the thing, right? When you see a red flag, the opportunity presents itself for you to say, okay, I'm going to address this now so I don't have to deal with it later. That's an opportunity. Or there's another space where you can go, I'm not dealing with that at all because I don't like it. What kind of puts us in a situation is where we go, I can fix that. Let me love, care, share, and be considerate enough, compassionate enough, so that the other person will look at me and go, I'm going to change. No, you can't expect someone else to change. You have to set a boundary. And I know sometimes setting boundaries puts us in a space where we feel like, oh my God, if I set this boundary, if I say I don't want to do this, if I talk, if I speak up for myself, I'm going to lose, right? I'm going to lose. Keywords, I'm going to lose this person, this relationship, this situationship, this friendship. If it's up for grabs to be lost, it ain't yours to begin with. You can lose a diamond ring, not true love. You can lose a job, not true love. You can lose a car, but not true love. And I know somebody's out there saying, well, I've had true love before and I kind of again. You know what? You can have true love. And even in a space where true love, right, is incompatible, there's still a lane where two people who are in a situation say, this isn't for me. I care enough about you to tell you this is not for me. I can't do this. This is not for me. That's where love is true. And it speaks truthfully. It speaks outwardly. It doesn't hold another person bound until it makes a decision. It doesn't overcome a person's kindness and healthy stability by being extremely toxic. It doesn't run you down to make you like it because it doesn't like how you are. We have to set boundaries. Boundaries is the only place where you can maintain your self respect. If you don't ask for it, if you don't demand it, nobody's going to give it to you. Who's going to give it to you if you don't demand it? Unhealthy relationships, unhealthy behaviors are waiting in the cut to take advantage of something healthy. And we have to learn how to be compassionate without enabling, because enabling is another way that someone else can take advantage, right? Hello, Samantha. Thank you so much for joining the live. If you just came in, we're talking about unhealthy behaviors and when it's unsafe to love someone. When it's unsafe to love someone because now they're so toxic you can't love yourself. We can be compassionate without enabling. We can be compassionate and be thoughtful about another person's space, another person's. But we can't change anybody's identity. Whoever a person is, that's exactly who they are. And they're going to be that person until they decide to change. Because remember, we said the change and the healing process is our own, right? The onus is on us to change who and how we conduct ourselves. It's on me to be a better version of myself. Okay, nobody come in here right now and say, Beth, you need to be better. I'll probably consider what you have to say, but I have to see it. There have to be examples. And even sometimes in spaces where there are examples, people are going to be who they are. And you can't change them, no matter how much you love them. You just can't. I remember a time where I had a friend, everything I could possibly do wherever I worked, whatever family events that took place, whatever monies I could share, I did. And I loved this person. Like, I loved them. I knew they were toxic. Like, but I didn't care. That's my girl, right? That's my girl. And wherever we went, it's my girl. But there was nothing. We had different backgrounds. Our demographics were different. We had different jobs. We had different lifestyles. And I'm not saying that people who have different lifestyles and different backgrounds can't be in alignment. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can have a person who comes from a family of where the parents are married, live together forever, and the person turns to a life of crime. You can have another person who's expected to be a product of their environment, one parent, single parent raised out by the mother, and they go on to be a college graduate and earn their doctorate. Like, your demographics and background play a role, but they're not the end all be all. So in my mind, I didn't care what her background was. She was my friend, and I loved her. I love her very much. To this day, I love her. But there's a part of me that realized if I don't let this go, I'm going to be in pain. If I don't let this go, I'm going to question love for the rest of my life. If I don't let this go, I'm not going to know what true love, true friendship looks like because I've accepted what it shouldn't look like. And that's huge. When you sacrifice everything you know, who you are, how you feel, what you have to say. How many times have you been in a situation with someone where you're like, I'm not going to say anything? But they're saying everything, and everything they say hurts your feelings. Like, what? How many times are you in a space where you know that you can give advice, but you won't? Because if you do, it'll be considered toxic or judgmental. Like, how you want to talk about me? Like, girl, no, I'm not. I love you enough to make a recommendation or a suggestion, but those things aren't welcome in spaces where people have a difficult time being loved. They just won't accept it. And in some cases, they can't accept it. And that unhealthy behavior shouldn't take you down. It shouldn't take you down. It shouldn't put you in a space where now you have to figure it out. Now you have to figure out if they love you, if you even love yourself. And in that space where you start realizing, okay, you were cute and cuddly at first. Like, what happened? You were my person at first. I could say no wrong. I could do no wrong. I always looked adorable. That's where that self sabotage piece comes in because now you're in a space where the person's like, well, I give up, or I don't care, or it is what it is, or oh well. Once people start saying those things that, oh well, it is what it is, okay, you have to be mindful. Like, where do you stand? Where do you take a stand? Where do you fit in this space of unhealthiness, in this unhealthy environment? Where do you fit in? Where do you start managing yourself again? How many times do you allow that unhealthy behavior to dictate how you feel, to dictate what you think, to dictate what you say, to dictate what you wear, how you dress, what you eat, how you wear your hair, words you use. Yeah, we got to be mindful. We got to identify this unhealthy behavior as soon as it starts. And when it starts, don't label it right away. You got to watch it. It's like doing surveillance. Watch it a little bit. See what's going on inside. Listen to the words that are being conveyed during the process. How do you talk to me? Are you rude, crude? Like, why did you choose that word to describe what we're doing? Words mean a lot. We're not all friends with Webster, right? But I love words. I love using and choosing different words because they have different meanings on purpose. When a person refuses to use another word to describe something, even when they know it offends you, when they choose the words that are offensive to you, you set a boundary by saying, let's not use that word, and they refuse and reject your request, that's where you gotta kick in. You gotta kick in right then and there. Because now it's, that's where you question it. Like, oh, how many people have told you it's just who I am? I do this to everyone. Well, I can't change now. And that's the space where you have to be like, you know what? You're right. You don't have to change pace. Because I can't manage your behavior and suppress my own. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. And I'm not saying my situation is always right? Because remember in the beginning we said that we all have some baggage, we all have weight, we all carry something that we brought over from the previous situation. But the responsibility is on us to chin check ourselves. Like, let me figure out what I have going on. If I have 5 people who said to me, Beth, I don't like when you did this, or when you did this, it made me feel. When you said this, Beth, it made me feel. When you said that, Beth, it made me think. And the thought, the feelings, or the words are not positive. It's up to Beth to say, if Johnny has 5 apples, it's not rocket science. The responsibility is mine at that point to say, okay, let me see if I can choose better words when I speak to this person. Let me choose a better environment when I'm around that person. It's almost like if you're a smoker, right? If you're a smoker, if you're not rude and crude, you're not going to pull your cigarette in an environment where no one else is smoking. Typically, the person who's thoughtful, a healthy situation would be that smoker is going to find an environment outside of where the non-smokers are to smoke, because they're not going to sacrifice the puff. I know, I used to smoke. I would never sacrifice my puff. I'm going to find a better space to have my puff in, but I would be considerate of the people who didn't puff. Same thing. We have to make sure that in those spaces, everything is as healthy as it can possibly be. And if you're dealing with someone who doesn't care, if you're in a situation where that unhealthy behavior says, I don't care if you smoke or don't, I'm smoking, you gotta figure that out. Because at that point, who cares? You should care. I know some of this is hard for us to think about, because when you're in a space where you love someone, you care for someone, you've been feeling these, you've been having these feelings for so long. Even when you see the red flags, you see the behaviors, you're like, uh, uh, I don't wanna. I want them so. I love this. I want this so much. I just want it so bad. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. Sometimes you gotta assess your favorite thing. Figure out if your favorite thing holds you as their favorite thing. If they have favorite things, then you really need to make a decision. But the onus is on us. It's on you to determine what it is you're standing in front of. Identify it. And everything doesn't happen overnight. Like even if you identified it today or tomorrow, and you said to yourself, "Oh my God, this is so unhealthy for me. What do I do next?" There's steps. There's steps to this thing. We don't just make a decision overnight. We don't make a decision, but that's what the Beth B Shift is here for. We're here to have these hard conversations so that we can figure out the next step. Because there is one. It may not feel good, but there's a next step. Dealing with an unhealthy behavior that causes or puts you in an unhealthy situation is unfair to you. When do you stand up for yourself to yourself? When do you realize I have to be a better version of myself for me? Because I matter. And I know sometimes some of us are in situations where we're in a financial situation, we can't just up and run. We're in a, we're our incomes are intertwined, our lives are into what we are family, friends with the other, our in-laws, we are friends with our co-workers. Sometimes it's hard to consider detaching yourself from an unhealthy environment. But at what cost, though? At what cost are we willing to allow that unhealthy, unstable, toxic behavior or environment to infringe on our opportunity to be happy, to be great? Some of us aren't being great because we don't have that healthy support. Some of us have to go out on our own and say, I'm going to do this. I'm rocking out with myself because it is what it is. I don't need anybody to support me. I'm going to do what I think is best. And I bet when we come out on top, we'll see. I'll be reminded of what it is that I had to do to support myself. It's not every situation where you're going to have support, healthy support. You'll have opinions. Oh, I wouldn't do it that way. Or maybe you should do this. Or how about you do that? Or you'll probably get more if you did this. Nah, no. How about never mind? And I'm not saying that we can't take valued, healthy opinions, suggestions, and recommendations from people who want to see us great, who want to see us thrive. I'm not talking about that situation. I'm talking about a situation where you've already identified that unhealthy behavior. You've identified the unhealthy environment and everything that comes from that unhealthy space is telling you something negative or toxic. Sometimes all you have is what you are able to assess from observing or watching, right? An unhealthy situation. Sometimes that's all you have. And if that's it, write it down. Let's put it down on pen and paper. Let's weigh it, pros and cons. Let's weigh this out. See what this looks like. When I'm here, how do I feel? When I'm there, how do I feel? When I'm here, what does this look like? And why do my thoughts change? Why am I not always positive? Why do I always feel unworthy? Why do I feel like my words are falling on ears that cannot hear? Why am I always trying to find a way to suggest that a person with an unhealthy behavior supports me? Shouldn't have to go through those lengths for someone who claims to love me to support me. And if I do, then I must acknowledge the fact that this is either one sided or not healthy enough for me to stick around. I get it. I've been in situations before where it's been rough. You have to, when you determine that this is unhealthy, when you identify that unhealthy space, and you have to make that decision and say, yeah, I'm not going to do this. What do I do next? There's a lot of thinking involved, but that action cannot take place. None of that can take place until you identify the unhealthy behavior that does not deserve your time and attention. Because I can almost promise you this: if you identify that unhealthy behavior, you identify how that environment makes you feel. If the shoe was on the other foot, baby, no. How easily can I be replaced? I have to think about that. I have to think about that. How easily can I be replaced? Like, what does that look like? Like, am I mean, we're all expendable, right? So we could all be replaced. But I know y'all know what I mean. How much are you willing to do to hang on to me? How much do you love me? And that you is there compassion and consideration for what it is that we built? And if there isn't, that's where we kick in. How much am I going to love someone who doesn't or can't allow me to love them in a healthy environment? And again, we got to identify healthy versus unhealthy. What's healthy? Some of us have never seen healthy. Some of us don't know what healthy looks like. Some of us can't even imagine what healthy love, healthy relationships, healthy situationships, healthy friendships. We can't fathom the idea because we've never seen it. But once your emotions start making you feel like you're in a space that you don't want to be in, that's where we have to kind of hone in on what's happening here. Why do I feel this way? And then what can I do about it to change the situation? It's up to us. It's up to us to change the situation. It's up to us to determine where we stand and what we can do to make us be better for us. Here's a Beth B moment, right? When you see it, you can't unsee it. Sometimes the hardest thing is realizing that the person that you've been trying to love desperately either doesn't want it or can't receive it. Now, let's be clear, love can definitely support healing, right? If somebody's going through the healing process, I can support you, but I can't replace what has been broken. I don't have that. I, we don't have that. We got to stop taking responsibility for other people's health journey. That's it and that's all. When you see it, you can't unsee it. When you can't unsee it, you got to figure it out. Nothing happens overnight. But be mindful. You deserve love too. And if the only love you can get for right now in this moment is your own, then love the hell out of yourself. This has been the Beth B Effect. And until the next time, y'all stay grounded.